So let's look at another case. We have the bearing. We want to look at bearing between two places. Bearing between two places, not involving the distance or the magnitude, as we can say. Now, this is a question before us. It said the bearing of point X from a point Y is 74. What is the bearing of Y from X? In this case, it's very important to draw the diagram. So let's begin. We have the bearing of point X from. Immediately you hear this statement from, you know that your first point of drawing will be this particular position here. So I'm going to say, oh, this is my Y. And always draw with a pencil because the direction, you may not be able to predict the direction. So this is my point here. And since it is a three-figure bearing, this is 0.74 degree. This is my Y. And then it stopped at point X. Now if you look at this carefully, you will figure out that there is a small angle here that eventually completes the quadrant 90 degree. And what angle do you, what do you add to 74 to give you 90? Clearly you will note that the angle missing here is just 16 degree. Now the question now asks us to find, we are to find the angle, the bearing of y from x. So this is our point x. This is where we are. They said, if here is 74, what do you think will be here? By alternate angles, here is also 74 degree. So they said if it starts from this place, 90, to this place, another 90, what is the bearing? So that's what we're looking for. This is 90 degree, and 74. So we can say, therefore, bearing of y from x equals to what? Equals to the addition of everything. That is 90 plus 90. Everything is already 180. This place is 180. So we have 180 degree plus 74 degree. And what will that give us? That will be equals to 254 degrees. So the angle we are going to have, the bearing of y from x is 254 degrees as shown on the board. This is another case. Say a point x is on the bearing 342 from a point y. Again, you draw your figure. I said this is your y from point y, and then the bearing, actually I've discovered that it's not going to come this direction, it's going to go the other direction. So it is very important that I draw from here. I have this is my y. So by the time I draw 90, 180, 270, 90, 270, I'm looking at 342. So this will be like very close to the entire circle. It will be like my 342. It came here to the point x. So this is 342 degree. Alright? We now say, what is the bearing of y from x? It means by the time I remember that if I have 90 here and I have 90, I have this 270. What did I add to 270 that gave me 342? Clearly you will discover that it is 72. If you add 72 degree to 342, to 270, you would have 342. But now we are looking at the bearing from here. We're looking at the bearing from here to this particular place. What will it be? Already here is 90 degree. And by alternate angles 72, 72, this is also 72 degree. Just this place, 72 degree. So therefore, bearing of x from y will be equals to bearing of y from x will be equals to 90 plus 72 degree, and that is 162 degree. So we've gotten this one, 162 degree. Let's look at this one. The bearing of Q from P is 122. The bearing of Q from P, it is safe to do this one like this. This is 90. This will be like your 122 right here. And so if here is, this is 122 degree. If here is 90 degree, all the way out to 122, that would be what do we have to make to give 122? That would be 32. So this is everything here is what gave us the 122 degree. So we stopped here. It means if here is 32, here is also what? Here is also 32 degree. If inside this place is 32, inside here is 32, it means here is also 32 degree. If this place is 32 degree, we now say what's the bearing of P when you start from what? By the time you draw, what angle will you obtain by the time you meet this particular line here? What angle are you going to obtain? This is 90 degree, this is 90 degree, this is 90 degree. So I can say that the bearing of P from Q equals to 270 degree plus 32 degree, and that is 302 degree. And that is the answer. So in our next class, we'll be looking at sine rule, cosine rule, and its application in solving questions or problems on bearing, and we advance it to diverse bearing and distance question in the past WAEC question. That's what we'll be looking at in our next class. See you there.